Hello, welcome to paintinglessonsonline.com. In this video I'm going to show you how to mix acrylic paints by creating a color wheel. First we need to draw our circle. You can freehand your circle or you can grab an object that is round and trace it just like this. Find the center and draw your circle like that. I'm going to draw several more circles, some rings on the interior, so that we can have multiple colors. For those, I'm going to freehand them now that I've got my main circle. It makes it a little bit easier. And I'm just going to use the contour of my wrist. I'm going to turn the canvas to create the round circle. Now, making a circle is pretty difficult. It's really hard to make a perfect circle, especially on your first try. So what you do is you draw an approximate circle like this, and then you go back and you make adjustments. You look and say, okay, where is my circle not rounded enough? And then you just go in there and round it out a little bit. I'm going to do another circle on the interior. The more rings that you make, the more colors that you can mix. Okay. Now that I have my circles drawn, I'm going to divide my canvas into 12 sections. I'm going to start by going straight down the middle. And then this next divide, I'm going to divide it into 6 sections. So I'm going to make an X with my ruler to try to create 6 equal parts. Like so. So now I have 6 sections, 3 primary colors, 3 secondary colors, and then I'm going to split them again to make the tertiary colors. Just put a line right through the middle of each of the 6 sections. Like so. Now we're ready to mix colors. So we're going to start with our primary colors. Our primary colors are red, yellow, and blue. We're going to start by just doing the straight color from the tube to see what that makes. I'll start with my red. I'm going to pick any square. I'm going to paint my red section. Now you can see with acrylic paints that they're a little transparent. These are student grade acrylic paints, so they're of lower quality but are less expensive. And so what you normally have to do with these is multiple layers. I'll start off by painting my first red like that. Then I will map out my yellow. To clean your brush, you just tap it in some water and then dry it off on the towel. I'm going to get my yellow. Now I want to have the 3 primary colors in order, so I'm going to skip 3 squares, and on the 4th square I'm going to put my yellow. I'm going to clean my brush off and do the blue. So 1, 2, 3, 4th one will be blue. Now some colors are more transparent than others, but with acrylic paints for the studio grade they're all pretty much transparent. The way that you can make them non-transparent when you're doing your first layers is to add white to them. That makes them more opaque, which means not see-through. Okay, so now I have my primary colors. Now we're going to mix our secondary colors by adding the primary colors together. So to create green, I'm going to add blue and yellow. Yellow is a weaker color, so I'm going to add a lot of yellow and just a small amount of blue to create my green color. If you use a lot of blue, you'll see that it doesn't really turn very green, it'll be mostly blue. So see, I had to get even more yellow. I'd say 70% yellow, 30% blue. And then I'm going to put that in between the yellow and the blue. Next I'm going to create orange. And the same thing with orange. Yellow is the weaker of the colors, 90% yellow and 10% red. And you can see that this is a very transparent color. Okay. If you want it to be less transparent, you can use more paint. If you really use a lot of paint and lay it on by not pressing down very hard on the brush, that'll make it less transparent. You can also wait for it to dry and give it a second layer. Okay, now we're going to create purple by mixing red and blue together. Now this purple is really dark when I mix the two together, so I'm going to add a little bit of white to it so I can see the color better. This is a very blue purple, so that means I need to add a tiny bit more red to get it right in the middle. And there we have our purple square. Alright, now we can see what happens when we add our tint, which is another word for white, to our colors. I'm actually going to break these down into more sections so that I can have multiple colors. I'll start with my red. So I'm going to take some white and some red and mix them together. And there are multiple different types of red. This is the cadmium red deep, which will turn into a different kind of pink than the other reds. So I'm going to add, this is what happens when I add a small amount of white. Then I'm going to add even more white. Like so. And then I'll even go one step further and have it be 99% white and 1% red. Just so you can see the different colors that you can make. Next I'll do my orange. Take a bit of white, mix it in with the pile that we already made. Next I'll do yellow. As you can see, when I add the white to these paints, it makes them somewhat less opaque or less transparent. Okay, next I'll do green. Since there's already yellow in my brush, and yellow is in green, I don't really need to clean it. Just take the white, mix it in with my green. Since the blue is kind of a strong color, I have to add a lot of white to make it get lighter. And on this last one, where I want it to be super light, I'm actually going to wipe the paint off my brush, take white, and just add the smallest amount of blue to it, so I can get the really, really pale blue hue. Like so. Last but not least, purple. more white to it. Same thing, this isn't getting much lighter, so I might have to clean off my brush if I want to get that really light hue. So on this last one, I'm going to wipe off my brush. Just add the smallest amount of purple to my white. Now that we have our primary and secondary colors, I'm going to actually use some of the raw secondary colors because the yellow and the red don't make the most vibrant orange. And I want you to see the difference between when you mix an orange and when it comes straight out of the tube. You can see that this orange is much more vibrant. And then I'm going to go ahead and add white to it so you can see what happens when it gets lighter as well. Orange kind of turns into a peachy color. I have here another yellow. The first one that I used was a really bright cadmium light yellow hue, and this is cadmium medium, which is slightly darker. Then you have cadmium deep, which is the darkest. So let's see what that yellow looks like. The green that we mixed is pretty nice. This is the Viridian green, and it is very bright. It actually makes teal when you add white to it. So the Viridian green, just straight out of the tube. It's very dark and bright and transparent. And then I'll add white to it. Makes this lovely teal. I'm going to make a really light version of the teal. Like so. Alright. The blue I showed you was Thal blue, and this is Ultramarine blue, which is actually a bit more on the purple side. You can see it's a deeper blue, and it's not as teal as the other one. See what happens when I add white to this. Okay. The purple right out of the tube is much more vibrant than mixing red and blue together. It's really dark. I'll show you what that looks like. Very, very dark. And then I'll add some white to it. Okay. So for this red, I had shown you the cadmium red. This is the alizarin crimson, which is more of a pink red. It's just brighter. Cadmium red is more in the orange spectrum. It's like a red rose. You'd think of cadmium red, whereas alizarin crimson has much more pink and purple in it. And you can see it's super transparent. Unless I forgot to dry off my brush. If you forget to dry off your brush, the water will greatly thin out your paint and make it very transparent. So always remember to dry in between cleaning brushes. And now that we have the full spectrum of paints, I'm going to create the tertiary colors. I'm going to start by creating a red-orange. So I'm going to take some of my orange and some of my red and combine them together. Then I'll make a yellow orange, which is going to be predominantly yellow and just a touch of orange mixed in with the yellow. Now this orange here is kind of a yellow orange, so I'm going to actually do a second layer of that, and I'm going to make it a bit brighter by adding yellow and orange together from the palette, or from the tube. Yeah, it's a brighter orange. And I'll redo those light colors so you can see how peachy it turns. Okay, excellent. Next we can do our yellow-green. Again, all you need is a very small amount of green and a lot of yellow. If you use the Viridian green with mostly yellow, it gets really bright. Now I'll do my blue-green. I'm going to use the phthalo blue because that one already has a bit of green in it. And I'm going to add some Viridian green, and I'm going to add a bit of yellow because those colors will make a really, really blue-green. And next I'll do my blue-purple. This time I'm going to use the French Ultramarine blue. And a touch of purple. And since those colors turn really dark, I'm going to also add a smidgen of white. And last but not least, we'll make our purple red. I'm going to use the alizarin crimson because it already has a bit of a purple hue to it. And then I'll add a little purple in with that. It makes a pretty dark color. So now that we've finished painting all of the primary, secondary, and tertiary colors, I'm going to teach you how to create the neutral colors, which are much less vibrant, by adding the complementary color or opposite color. So blue's complementary color is orange, purple's is yellow, red's is green, and so on and so forth. They create browns, pretty much. If you have more blue in your hue, it's going to be more of a gray, and if you have more red and yellow, it's going to be more of a brown. If you're creating this color wheel to make a beautiful piece of art, feel free to fill in whatever colors you want, but if you're doing this as an exercise to learn how to mix all of the colors in the spectrum, and also out of the spectrum, this is how you do that. Let's start with purple and yellow. So I'm going to take a large amount of yellow, since it's the weaker of the colors, and a small amount of purple, and mix those together and see what they make. So if I have more of a yellow, I'm going to put that on the yellow end of the spectrum. And I'm going to go ahead and add white to it to see all the browns that I can make on the yellow end. I'm also switched to a smaller brush because now I'm working in the center, and you want something that fits in these really small sections. There we go. Now I'm going to do the same thing, but with more purple and less yellow. You can see how the purples make more of a gray and the yellows make more of a brown. Now I'll try red and green. So I'll use mostly green, with a small amount of red. And I can do it here. Actually, no. This is how you create really natural greens if you're doing a landscape. You don't want to use these vibrant greens the whole time unless you're painting something that's super bright and you're going for color. But if you want something more realistic, you're going to want to mix a little bit of red in with your greens to create more organic, natural greens such as olive or forest green. You can see that these are very similar. Now we know. Okay, next let's do our orange and our blue. I'll start off with the mostly blue. You've probably noticed your palette is beginning to dry. The acrylic paints dry very, very quickly. And so you might have to mix more colors, you might have to apply more paint. Okay, there we go. Now we have our neutral colors. Next I'm going to show you what happens when you add black to your colors. You can make pretty much any brown by mixing complementary colors, whereas the grays are very easy to make with black. If you just use black and white, you can see that they make a black that doesn't have any other tint or anything to it. I'll just put it right here by the purple. It's a very regular gray. The more white you add, the lighter the gray. Like so. If you add a little bit of purple to your black, you create different types of grays. And neutral purples. Now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add black to my magenta or red-purple. Black does a lot of really interesting stuff to the colors in acrylic. It really changes them in unexpected ways. Especially if you add yellow and black together, it actually makes green, which is not what you would expect. Each brand of paint is going to create a different effect when you mix paints together. These are the Studio Acrylic Blick paints. If I were to try the professional grade paints, they would make different colors when combining the two together. Same with any type of oil. So whatever paints you have, once you learn what happens when you mix two colors together, it's always going to be the same. If you switch to another brand, though, you're going to have to relearn how to create different colors. So I'm really liking these neutral purples. Okay. Now I'm going to try black with some green. It's blue-green. It's going to make some other neutral colors. Now we'll try, I'm going to do black and yellow here so you can see what happens when you mix those two together. I'm going to use more yellow and less black because the yellow is a very weak color. You can see that that makes green. Now I'll do orange and black. And then I'm going to add black to this red-orange as well. So I'll just take a little bit of orange, a little bit of red. and some black. And there we have it. We've finished our color wheel. We've got our primary, secondary, tertiary, our tints, our tones, our neutrals, and our vibrant hues. I hope that you enjoy making your own color wheel as much as I enjoyed making this video for you guys. Thank you for joining me on paintinglessonsonline.com, and I'll see you again next time. Now that we've finished our color wheel, if you'd like, you can sign your name. I'm going to take a very small brush, a small amount of paint. Black is traditional, but you can use any color you'd like. It's just tough when you use transparent colors, because then you might have to sign it more than once. To make it opaque. Now that we're finished with our first acrylic painting, we need to wash our brushes. All you have to do is take them to the sink, rinse the paint out, put a little soap on the bristles, rub the soap into the bristles, and then rinse that out as well. Then you just let them sit to dry, and they're good for next time.